welcome to the Firehouse Roundtable podcast, brought to you by the Ventura Fire Foundation. I'm one of your hosts, Peter McKenzie, retired fire captain with the City of Ventura Fire Department, and my co-host, Jason Kay, active battalion chief with the City of Ventura Fire Department. We are going to bring awareness to real issues that face firefighters and their families. We want you to feel like you have a seat at the kitchen table, which every firefighter knows is the heart of the firehouse. Let's get right into the episode. All right, welcome to another episode of the Firehouse Roundtable. Jason, welcome.
Thanks, man. It's good to see you.
Yeah, likewise. It feels like it's been a little while since we recorded an episode. But we have with us today Charlie Brown, who is the co-founder of Next Rung, also a Glendale firefighter. Charlie, welcome to the show. We'll give you a minute to kind of tell our listeners a little bit about you, but we're excited to have you on.
Right on. Thanks for having me. Yeah, like I said, I'm engineer and paramedic with the Glendale Fire Department here in Southern California. I've been there going on 14 years. That department, I started with CAL FIRE as a wildland seasonal out in Riverside County. Co-founder of Next Rung, nonprofit for firefighter and first responder mental health. Launched our nonprofit status in 2018. I got a family of 3 children, 1 wife, 2 dogs, living the American dream out here in Southern California where the weather is always amazing. So yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, that's me. Sure, we'll get down into the nitty gritty of a lot of those things, but those are the basics.
Yeah, I would assume we have quite a bit in common. Like not every fireman starts a nonprofit. We just happen to be doing the same thing you're doing in that regard. So definitely want to dive into that. And obviously mental health of the first responders and the families is our like shtick. And it sounds like, we're aligned in that respects as well. So yeah, I'm excited to have this conversation. It's always nice to see other people who care about the same things you do and who are willing to do something about it, right? Like it's not easy to start a nonprofit, right? Like nope. I'm sure you're enjoying the 7-figure income you're getting from the nonprofit. So that makes it all worth it, right?
Right. Yeah. 7 zeros. Yeah. The 7 zeros. Yeah. They're pretty awesome. Yeah.
Everybody loves to work for free, which obviously that's what you do in a nonprofit, but yeah. So we're excited. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what Next Rung is? Like what's the story with it?
Yeah. So, Next Rung came to be back 2017, early on 2017. And, I'm almost 40 and I feel like I've got the benefits of a little bit millennial, a little bit Gen Z type, aspects. I still know what the way things were back in the old days, dial up phones and so forth, but still in tune with technology. So, and I lead that because the way Next Rung came to be was completely it was over social media, which is so like millennial to say, but yeah, Blake Stinnett, who's my partner in crime with Next Rung, he's in Georgia. He's a firefighter just outside of Atlanta. And he found me on Instagram. I was coaching CrossFit and doing a lot of stuff for, pushing the physical fitness side of the fire service and, just doing all that. And so anyway, it popped up in his little social media feed. So Blake actually had the name already and had an idea for a t-shirt company to sell t-shirts, raise money, and then donate the money back. The reason why he came up with the name and that idea was because in his department where he was working, he had suffered a number of suicides. They had 5 suicides over the course of 2 years in the county and fire department that he was working for. When he had first come into the fire service, he had one of his academy instructors who was top-notch guy, wife, kids, everything seemed to be going well. Would give you no inclination that anything was wrong. And that individual took his own life 6 months after Blake, was on probationary year. So that was the first one. And then subsequently they had a bunch more after that. So, it left him wondering what's going on? Why is this happening? And so, yeah, he had this idea of like, hey, we need to, kind of donate some money or do something to kind of go after that cause. Anyway, he found me, reached out, said, hey, would you be interested in, kind of sporting swag? And so we decided we were going to be a nonprofit. And at the time, summer of 2017, I remember I had a fire chief at the time, hot button topic of mental health. They were saying, hey, we're going to do stuff for your guys' mental health. It wasn't really, peer support wasn't a thing. We didn't have a peer support team, but we had SISM and everything. Hey, we're going to sign you guys up for this website. You're going to be able to access some resources in case something happens. But that was it, right? And I remember going on the website and clicking on on my department, and it's like the resource available was the fire chief, and it's like, that's it, and who really wants to, when you're in a time or of need, the fire chief's office is probably not the place that most people are going to turn. So we knew it was being talked about, but not a whole lot was being pushed behind it. And so, Blake and I said, we're going to focus on the mental health side, really try and help people in that regard. And so we knew we needed a place where first responders could go and communicate. We recognize the importance of conversation. Like I said, if a lot of times you just need someone to talk to. And when it's the fire chief's office that's being advertised, it's probably not the place that people are going to go talk. So let's try and get first responders in contact with first responders that understand what it is, that they could be going through. And so we're like, we need to come up with a way of, creating a communication line, because social media messages, Facebook messages, email, all those things are time delayed. They don't work well, cumbersome. And so we wanted something that was pretty much, more instant. So we were like, we need to have a talk line, or something, a way that people can reach out and communicate like right now. So we came up with a phone number and recognized the need for text messaging. And so that's what our line is. Our helpline is a talk or text line. And like I said, we quickly realized that the text message is the value of it, because people will unleash everything via text message.
Let's pause there, Charlie, because I don't want to go through the whole thing start to finish in one breath. But I will say, Jason, how familiar does this story sound?
Yeah, very familiar. And I think it goes with like what you're doing. People want to help, and they want to know what it is other people need, right? So a lot of what you're talking about is what we've been trying to do too, and a lot of departments have been trying to do and team up with. It seems like you specifically in your foundation has had some success with this. The one question that sticks out to me is, who answers the phone or the text message? How did you find those people, and who is it that is talking back and giving some therapy and help advice?
Yeah. Well, when it first started, it was just Blake and myself. It was just two of us answering phone calls and text messages for about the whole first year. And, it's just, you're answering you're at the needs of people. And so, we've expanded since then. We have 34 peer support members, our peer support team that across all.
Did you guys start, sorry to interrupt. Did you guys start your peer support team, the two of you as well, or by yourself, or how did that come into existence?
The peer, you mean like with Next Rung wise?
No, your peer support team. Are you the peer support group in your department? Or
yeah.
Is there still
So I am on our peer support team, but I did not form our peer support team in my department. I had already, Next Rung was established before our peer support team at the department was established. And so we have like a peer support lead and folks that were running that saw the need of it, or the need for it as well. I'm fortunate to be a part of the team, and I lend any resources or anything that I have knowledge wise or anything to our team as well. But, yeah, it's interesting, like running you got one foundation or your own thing on one side and then your department on the other. And I'm not trying to mix
but you're just trying to do good.
Yeah,
right? Everywhere you go. And when you first said it was just you and Blake who were answering the phone, did you guys have any training, or were you just there to pick up the phone and go, somebody's here to listen?
There's someone here to listen.
How can I help this guy?
Yeah, peer support training was not a thing. I take that back. I mean, not that it wasn't a thing. IFF was probably the only, training program that was out there. But if you wanted to get that, then you had to, have how that system works in terms of like having your association pay for the training, whatever. But no, one of the things that we push or support rather is that for those people that want to help, that want to be someone to, listen and help others in need, that training, is good and will get you exposed to some of the, more like medical side of things, and in terms of, the studies and educational side of things. Like, if you have a heart to listen and a heart to ask, to help, then you should be given that opportunity. And so we tell people, like, when people reach out and say, hey, how can we be involved? Can we be a part of the peer support team, or can we, do whatever, right, to get involved with the organization? We encourage people, like, be, a voice in your own agency. Start where you're at. We'll be there to support you, kind of like backfill with support, maybe some resources and so forth, but just start where you're at and then, go from there. Let people know that you're willing to listen, start the conversations, how to start those conversations, when you see something, say something, type attitude.
Peter, before you talk, I'm going to interrupt just for 1 second because I know what you're going to say, because this is if Peter had a t-shirt that said something.
I think you're wrong on this.
It would
go
be,
ahead. Let's hear it.
It would be do something.
Do something.
Oh, gotcha.
Stop. Yeah. Don't do nothing. Don't just think about it. Take some action.
Right.
Right. And I think that's what you did. That's a great leadership way to think of it, is you saw a need. There's plenty of need out there. Right. Yeah. And everybody's going, what do we do? What do we do? You led the way and did something. So let's go ahead, Peter.
I just want to say, did you guys intentionally model a peer support team anywhere and everywhere in the fire service for this nonprofit? Because essentially just hearing what you're saying is, you basically are taking, and I'm sure there's more to it, and hopefully we talk about it, but from what I've heard so far, it's a peer support team that you're putting out to everyone across the country or wherever. Is that it in its simplest form?
Yeah, and that's what we call it. Everyone that's in the organization, that's our peer support team. And we call our talk text line is our peer support line. Like that's the first line of communication is the peer support line. And really what we see the organization, the way things are going, and what we like to see, the trend, obviously the nonprofit side of things and helping use those funds to pay for treatment is a huge part of it. But we're really encouraged by seeing the big increase in numbers of people that are reaching out and asking for help, because, the biggest challenge, if you will, right, is changing the culture and getting first responders to recognize and realize that they have something maybe going on, and recognizing that it doesn't matter how big it is or how small it is or whether you think it's worthy or unworthy, there's nothing too big, there's nothing too small, and it's all about having that conversation and starting it. And so what we've seen is this larger trend of people reaching out and asking for help. And so that's we're super encouraged about, because that's what we want. We want to change the culture and make it so that people feel comfortable in reaching out and saying, hey, I got something going on. It may not be very big, or, you might think it's not that big a deal, but it is maybe to me. And it totally correlates to how, we operate in the first responder world, right? Because we are 911. Yeah. People call 911. And how many times is it you called inside your head? Obviously, you're not maybe verbalizing this, but sometimes you will, but most times you're not. But you're like, I can't believe you called 911 for this. Right? Why are you calling this isn't an emergency, but maybe it's not an emergency to me or to you or, but to them it is, right? To them, what is an emergency? I mean, I'd say it's just a situation in which you're overwhelmed and you don't know what to do. And it can be, medically, obviously the most significant thing, disaster wise or whatever, but it could be something very simple where you're just home alone. We get a lot of people they live alone or whatever. They have no experience with anything in life and they don't know how to turn off their stove, Charlie, and that's an emergency, And so for some people in the mental health side of things, it's the same way. They're, it's funny. We'll have these kind of critiques or criticisms of whatever of the people that utilize our, we call 911 or, call upon us for whatever. And it's the same way. Next thing you know, we're going to send a text message to peer support and be like, I don't know if this is even worthy of, peer support, but you're like, dude, yeah, it is worthy, because obviously it's driven you to a point where you're like, I don't know the answer. I don't know how to handle it. I don't know where to go from here. And that's where we're same thing. We show up on incidents and we're not experts in everything, but we're not going to leave until we help mitigate whatever it is you got going on.
Hi, I'm Austin Folk, an engineer with the Ventura City Fire Department. I'm also on the board of the Ventura Fire Foundation, an organization that supports firefighters and their families. The foundation produces this podcast as part of our mission. I worked with the foundation because I was witness to the help that it was able to provide to my family. The foundation needs your help. First, please subscribe and rate this podcast on your podcast platform. This helps us get a higher ranking and more visibility for the show. Second, if you support the podcast and the foundation's work, please consider donating. Every dollar helps us support firefighters and their families. There's a link in the show notes or you can donate through the website at www.venturafirefoundation.org. Thank you for listening.
I'm fascinated by how simple it was. And sometimes it's like, duh. Yeah, like we have peer support teams in our departments. Not every department does. Some departments are more progressive than others. Mm-hmm. So you guys were like, okay, well, we'll just screw the fire department. We'll just do our own nonprofit peer support, make it available to everybody. Same difference, right? So simple. What has been the adoption like? Talk to us a little bit about the organization, because I'm fascinated by this, because the thing I hate about the fire department is the bureaucratic red tape and how difficult it is to get something done, to change all that stuff, right? We're all on the same page with that. I think every firefighter hates that. But you basically extracted something that is good in the fire service, that we need in the fire service, which is peer support. And you said, okay, I'm taking this, that maybe not consciously, but you basically said, I'm taking this away from the fire department. We're going to run it over here in this nonprofit because we have way more freedom. We don't have all these jurisdictional boundaries and bureaucratic budgets and nonsense. What did that look like organizationally? Because you're also in a weird spot because you guys are on both coasts, mm-hmm. which, these things tend to be very localized and you influence the people in your department. But what did it look like getting started? How did people respond to it? And then talk a little bit about the dual coast aspects of it.
Yeah. So like I said, when we first started, it was Blake, myself answering phone calls, text messages, and we got overwhelmed. Like we always said, if we helped one person, then it was all worth it. And we did it, then we did good. And I think in the first year, I think we peer supported 60 to 70 like first responders that reached out for help in various capacities. But, we quickly realized like, we can't manage that. Like, we can't just do this, the two of us, we need more. And so really through networking, and we say we just let it grow organically, not putting forth like this huge recruitment campaign or anything like that. Like it's just been people that have come to us in their genuine, curiosity, desire to want to help. Like I said, at the very heart of it, our ultimate goal is to leave the first responder community better than we found it. Right. We entered into this career, 15 years ago, and we just wanted to see it look better when we're done. And so for those that come to us and say, hey, we want to be, how can we be involved? What can we do? I have training. Like we have had people that say, hey, I've done peer support training. I've done this, that. I've seen your guys' organization at work. And I want more of that. I want to be a part of it. And so then we just start conversations with those folks and say, this is what we do. This is how it works. This is what the system looks like. Now, obviously we've built out a more robust peer support team where, as the leadership has grown and you got to have that span of control. And so now, the way that the team looks now, Blake and myself, we're now kind of removed from the peer. We have a director of peer support, Caleb Gressman. He's a lieutenant down in Jacksonville, Florida. He manages the whole peer support team. So he is the one, helping them with any issues or doing whatever they got going on. Robert Arrieta is our director of treatment. He's a lieutenant out of New Mexico, works for Albuquerque Fire Department. And he's in charge of... Are these paid positions, or are these all volunteers? Everyone's a volunteer. The only ones right now that we're paying are the director of peer support and the director of treatment on a very minimal basis, because we feel like we should, want to, the goal is, as the organization grows, that they become, worthy position. Everyone's time is worth something, right? And so we want to make sure that those that are dedicating time are taken care of. But everyone else, those are the only two like paid positions. Everyone else our whole entire peer team is completely volunteer. How do you guys make money? What are your funding sources? Like, what does that look like because I imagine you have some significant expenses with all these people and the things you do. Yeah. So it's all just fundraising. We have funneling through the website, which is like where people donate on a daily basis, monthly basis. We have recurring donations, which is a huge portion of it. And then we are fundraising throughout the year, fundraising events. We did our battle for mental health back in the fall. And then actually tomorrow we have our inaugural first ever face-off for mental health charity hockey game here in Ontario, which we're hoping looks like, we raised somewhere between $20,000 or so, So And then, we have some larger donations that come in like on an annual basis to people that have been following our organization for a number of years. We have some big family trusts and stuff that donate to the first responder community. So, but I mean, really every dollar counts, and it really does. When you start adding it up, it's pretty remarkable. We always, we put our faith in other places. We always say like, this isn't us. That's why we don't, Blake, myself, whatever, we don't take a paycheck or anything. It's not our money to have. Anybody that donates money to the organization or buys apparel or anything like that, that money goes right back into helping people. And that's where we want the money to stay and go, because ultimately that's what it's all about. And so
what's the biggest struggle that your organization has? Like what's the hard part for you guys?
I mean, fundraising is the hardest part. I think any nonprofit will tell you that fundraising is the hardest part. Money makes the world go round, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. And when you're talking about mental health, I mean, treatment costs are astronomically expensive. Luckily, insurance companies are coming more in tune and more in line and covering a lot of those things. So we've been able to offset a lot of costs because of that. But I mean, that's the biggest thing is just, are we going to have enough money to be able to cover the costs associated with said treatments? Because the last thing we want to do is tell people no, that we can't help you.
Yeah.
And we've always said, like, if at the end of the day, if the bank account ran to zero and you had someone on the line that it meant life or death, I mean, Blake, myself, we would say, I'm paying out of pocket. I'll pay to get this person to whatever it means to save their life, and we have faith that we'll be taken care of, that won't happen. And thank God, 5 years, that's never happened. We've never run out of money. Matter of fact, I mean, we just finished up our 2023 numbers. If you guys didn't see them, we had posted them on social media, but like I told you, in the first year, we did like 60 to 70 peer support, contacts. In 2023, we did 333. So, and then translate that to treatment costs or clinical sessions, counseling sessions, which would be the next step. And we paid out for over 350 counseling sessions. We paid over $100,000 in treatment costs as a nonprofit from two firefighters that had no idea what they were doing, and said, if we raised, $10, then, great. And the fact that we can say that we've paid over $100,000 in treatment costs, and this isn't the first year that we've done that, and we've never run out of money. Like, I mean, I don't know. Awesome. It's pretty miraculous to me. We're super blessed and fortunate.
While you're talking about numbers, what does your staff look like right now besides your two paid positions? How many peer support members? Do you have therapists? Like, do you have them available all the time, or do they make appointments with them, or what are your numbers look like for staff?
Well, we have about 34 members on the peer support team. And like I said, they go all across time zones. We used to have a member in Hawaii. He's since moved back to the mainland. So we can't say Hawaii to New York anymore, but from California to New York and all the way in between. So our peer support team is very, well, we say, diverse, because we try and make it so. We have people from a wide range from first responder communities. So firefighters, EMT paramedics, dispatchers, nurses. We have, men, women. We have like rank level all the way from the firefighter to the chief. So we have chiefs that are either active duty or retired. And again, every kind of position in between there.
How do you get them on staff? How do you recruit for all those different peer support members?
Oh, really? It's more like they come to us, and then, we start having conversations with them of, okay, you're interested. You want to do this. That's just, all right. We'd love to meet with you and have a talk, and then see, to let you know how it works, kind of what the obligations are.
Do you get people reaching out every day?
Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's just a simple conversation, checking in. Some people have curious about how the organization works, whatever. But most oftentimes we have at least one text or something for, a peer support need a day. And then some days it's just, you get inundated, and we're all calling, hey, we need everyone to kind of step in and not any one peer team member is getting overwhelmed and handling it.
What do you guys do? Do you guys do anything for family? Does the family ever reach out to you, or is it just the first responder?
No, all of our our services are for the first responder and their significant other, spouse, kids to a certain age extent. Honestly, like teenagers and older might have more, or might be more apt to need some help. But
You bring them all in and treat them the same way. Basically,
Yeah.
you'll give them whatever they need.
We've had plenty of, and we encourage it, like especially on the spouse side. Wives, husbands of first responders. I mean, who better to know their person? To recognize that they're having an issue. We've had plenty of spouses that reach out and say, "Hey, my firefighter, I'm seeing a change, and I don't know what's going on, and I don't know what to do." Our marriage is falling apart, our relationship, this, whatever. And a lot of it, you'll know this, right? That a lot of first responders were attracted to other types of service oriented people, right? So you got a lot of nurses that are married to firefighters. You got, like, my wife's a teacher, so like within that sort of arrangement, right?
Yeah.
And so they've got some stuff going on too. We've got live high, like in high stress environments and so forth. And then you take the first responder and just, hey, if you've never, experienced what it's like to live in a first responder household, let me just, show you, like, shake up this can and then, open it and see what it comes out. Like, so when we get the spouses to reach out and say, hey, I don't know what to do. Great. We'd love to help. What can, how can we help them to, one, get conversations started, right? Because then we can come out and say, hey, if I was your spouse and I was having an issue, because we can all be like, hey, would you take offense if your wife or someone came to you and like, I know there's something wrong with you and you're going to go to treatment. I'd be like, no, like, you don't know or whatever. Right. So how can we help them through to, like, kind of crack that shell and get in there a little bit and encourage them, saying, hey, I heard about this Next Rung group, maybe, give subtle hints, whatever it might be, a little card here, a little there, note there, whatever, get them thinking about it, encourage the conversation and so forth. So yeah, we help the whole family. And then especially when it comes to, like, the treatment side of things, counseling, we pay for treatment counseling for the spouse just as much as the first responder, because we truly believe in building the household. It can't be one-sided. You can have, and we've seen it happen where the first responder goes to treatment, like an intensive type treatment, right? And they get, like, relief and they're feeling good and they're coming back without recognizing the fact that on the other side of it, there are some wounds from what happened, leading up to that point. So it's like, hey, like, we've seen relationships, like, fall apart, like, where first responders feeling good. I went and got treatment, like, everything's good. I go home and I'm good. And and there's this, like, resentment, like, well, you never, like, really, you never healed the others. Like, that's good. You healed yourself. But guess what? The other side is pretty, like, still, kind of upset about how you treated them or how, uninvolved you were or whatever. And so it's like, hey, that's really great for you. I'm so glad that you're feeling better. But guess what? There's a lot of people within this house that are not feeling very well, And so we feel like we need to bring them both together. And so we pay for treatment, like joint treatment, where they'll go to, whether it's marriage counseling or whatever, we'll do it individually. One goes to each clinician, whatever.
Charlie, let's pause there. I want to zoom out a little bit and shift gears on you a little bit. So I view our organizations as kind of in this together, right? And we're not the only two organizations that are trying to address these issues. And there's other organizations that, frankly, may do the same things that our foundation and your foundation does. What is your take on networking with other similar organizations? Like, how do you guys navigate those worlds? You're in a unique perspective because you're basically a national organization, which is awesome. I think it's amazing. We're more localized. Because the one that comes to mind right off the bat is the Overwatch Collective, Greg, up in Northern California, who is doing something very similar to you. How do you guys play with others? I guess is a simpler question. Like, how do you see that? Because a lot of this is like vision, high level stuff, and how we're going to tackle some of these issues.
Yeah. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters are the people that get help. And, like, for our organization, it's not about Next Rung. It's not about being the one, the best. We want to have a top-notch organization. We want to put forth, a quality product, if you will, a trustworthy, service that people can say, hey, that organization really takes care of people. Like, they care. They're, real. that's why it's important that all of our members are, either active duty, retired, so forth. They're still involved in the community in some aspect. Like they get it, and again, they're real. Like we're not a call service, like an answering service where you call the number and you get someone who doesn't, care where you're calling from or whatever. And so at the end of the day, it's about the end user. It's about the person. And so with that, when it comes to other organizations that are especially talking about this topic, the more the merrier, by all means. Like there's plenty of room. And guess what? We don't have unlimited finances. So if you got money or you got, resources to get people help, thank you. Appreciate you. Like here, I'll send you some or whatever, right? Like it's not about like this competition or, we'd like to be, I mean, we can certainly look at each other and go, we really like what they're doing. Like I love the Overwatch Collective's app. Like I think it's a great idea, right? A place, it's super simple. Everyone's got one of these, and it makes it accessible. Very cool. We don't have the tech kind of background or anything like that to develop something like that. But
has anybody ever tried to hire you guys as like an outsourced peer support team, like the department?
It's been talked about.
Pays you or has a contract with you?
So the problem is like mobilization, and what does that look like?
There's my entrepreneurial Peter. I knew you were coming into this. So,
I'd love to.
Hey, I have a question for you, Charlie. So doing this and receiving as many calls as your group does, do you have something that you're on the lookout for the future? So, for instance, what are you hearing more and more of right now concerning firefighters' mental health? What can we as captains or guys who are living at the firehouse be on the lookout for that you're seeing most of right now?
I think, one of the things that you're seeing on a national level, and you kind of touched on it before the show, you're talking about like staffing and stuff like that, right? Is that there's a huge decline in the numbers of people that want to do this, they're enter into this profession, right?
Yep.
Like we're seeing it across the board here in California, and I'm sure it's like that, across the country. And we do see it when people like kind of reach out, right? Because you talk about burnout, and just to like hit a hot button, like keyword, if you will, right? The burnout, that we're constantly being tasked to do more with less. And it's not so much less in terms of maybe money, while that's a contributing factor. A lot of times just less people. Like we can't hire enough people. People don't want to enter into this profession because of any number of reasons. And so because of that, if you're in a place like we are here, where you have constant staffing and you're getting forced to work more and more, or, they can't fill a vacancy. And so like a rig, like mostly across the country. So here where we have constant staffing and guys get forced to work, as opposed to across the country where if someone doesn't show up for work or can't work, they don't fill the overtime spot, right? Like they just say, okay, well, if you're normally at 4-person staffing, today you're at 3. And so now you're having to do all the things you would normally do with 4. Well, now you're doing it with 3. And it becomes more and more cumbersome, and it becomes more and more, hard on you and so forth. So it's always this constant doing more with less. And that just creates, it creates stress. It creates physiological, responses. It adds to the household, side of things, especially being forced to work and being gone. The nature of which people, utilize the 911 system. Sleep deprivation is a huge one. Like how do we combat the physiological effects of, the calls for service, then, to keep our minds right? Obviously, there's a lot of big things that are in the fire service, specifically cancer and cardiovascular health and all those things, and all very important. And we have a lot of things in place to help us in those regards. But on the mental health side of things, peer support is it's a vital part of it, but the preventative care, like what are we doing preventative care before our members need peer support? You work at a station where you get run ragged, every shift. And if you work like a shift like mine, we work a 48-96. So you got 2 days back to back. If you get up 5 times a night, 2 nights in a row, and that, so 5 nights or 5 times that first shift, and you're going into your second day of your 48 and you're absolutely wiped. But guess what? You still got all your duties to do, that are obligations to the department and so forth. And you're just like, when do you get to rest for yourself? Like when can you even function? Like I know as a driver, because right now as an engineer, right, you drive and sleep deprivation and so forth. Like I'm driving this fire engine and I'm exhausted. And it's like, how do you combat that? And how do you balance as a supervisor, if you're a captain or chief or anything like that? Well, obviously, like you have the obligations of the department, things that need to get done, but how do you balance the need and well-being of your people, while managing to get the things done that you need to get done? There's got to be some liaison type communication saying, hey, I understand, if I was like a captain, I got to, relate to my chief and saying, hey, chief, I know we have things that we need to get done, but my crew is absolutely wiped right now. And they're no good to anybody if we don't get some rest, right? So hey, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get them some downtime, some rest. Like we have your son was one of our ambulance operators, right? They're the busiest apparatus in our town, and they run more calls than anybody, and they're gone. And it's like they don't eat. How many times you like missed a meal? You've missed a meal. You missed a meal. We put our ambulances out of service just to eat. Because it's like, hey, you guys got to stop, and you guys need to eat. You need to take a second. Get your meal in, right? Go out of service, 15 minutes, whatever, 20 minutes, get some food, take care of yourself. Because if we just continue to kick that can down the road, what good are we going to be serving the public if we can't, take care of ourselves? So
yeah, I like it. Absolutely. Let me interrupt you for one sec. For context for the listeners out there, my son used to be an ambulance operator for the Glendale Fire Department, which is where Charlie Brown works now. He now works for our department. And a lot of the things that I wanted to touch on really quick as a newly promoted battalion chief, one of the things that I will say I try to keep my eyes and finger on the pulse with that is really tough to do is how the crews did last night and how they're feeling today. And that's something, if the captains can take a pulse on that and then let the BC know, instead of just the common practice is to go, the BC doesn't know, he doesn't care, it doesn't matter, they're going to work us to death anyways. Let me know. Let the BC know. Let the captain know. And that way we can specifically try to put you guys into something that isn't as scheduled out for the day at a minimum.
Yeah.
So those are my 2 cents on what you're saying. We all want to be a part of the solution if we can.
Right. And I'm on the captain's list. So that's where I'm like,
brought me right to that point.
Charlie, let's get the phone number out there. I think that's probably pretty pertinent information. So if somebody's listening and they want to reach out or they're having an issue, a crisis, what's the best way to get a hold of your organization?
So the best way, and like I said, the most immediate kind of response that you're going to get from us is through our text line or talk text line. And it's very simple, 833 number, right? So there's no charges or anything associated with it. And it's 833 Next Rung, NXTRUNG, which is 698-7864. So 833-698-7864. And again, if you can't remember, that's NXTRUNG, Next Rung. So, we ask people just, shoot us a text message that just says a simple support. Text the word support to that number. That allows us on the back end kind of get the peer support team coordinated. If someone was up and like they say they're on shift today, hey, I'm on a call right now, I can't take the call, so then it goes down, right? But if someone calls and we don't answer, we ask people like, just stand by, like we're not ignoring you or anything like that. It's just the way that the system works, and obviously, like I said, we might have something going on or whatever. But you'll get an automated response saying, hey, just sit tight for a minute. We're going to give you a call back or get you a text message. We're going to get someone on the peer team going with you. If it's let's say, or it's not peer support, but maybe it's counseling. Like you're looking like, hey, I've been doing peer support with my own department or so forth, and I need like that next step, and I'm trying to get to a counselor. Like just text the word counseling instead of support, counseling. And then that triggers us. Okay, this person's looking for that next step. We have a process to get people into counseling. I know you had mentioned it earlier, and there's so much to talk about. Like this mental health thing. I mean, you could just go on for hours and hours and hours, but it's tough to like confine it into these small time frames. But our peer support team then leads to our counseling, and the counseling, we utilize the Counseling Team International as one of our partners to try and contract counselors or to bring them on staff, if you will, and have them. They go through a scheduling. We get them lined up. we pay for 6 sessions right off the bat. And then if they need more, then with the advice of their counselor at request of the clinician saying, hey, this person would benefit from an additional, sessions, we will give them another 6 for a total of 12, which they can utilize at any given point. There's nothing. We don't tell you, hey, you have to go this point. No, you have 6 sessions completely funded. Don't even worry about it. Just go get the help that you need and deserve. Maybe don't need all 6. Maybe you only need 2 or whatever, but you have 6.
We'll make sure we link the number and your guys' website.
Yeah.
And Instagram and all that in the story. We kind of need to start winding down. Is there anything you didn't share that you wanted to make sure we get out about the organization or what you guys are doing? Or is there anything we didn't touch on that you wanted to touch on?
No, I mean, if people want to donate, which again, we talk about finances, the biggest portion of our, what we do is donation. The link on the website, which take you to our Change Lives campaign. And that's where people can sign up to donate on a recurring basis or a one-time basis. Every little bit helps. And so,
what is your website?
nextrung.org. Just www.
Okay, and do you sell swag on there too?
We do. We've kind of changed around. We were carrying a ton of inventory, and it's just like super cumbersome and whatever. So we've gone to like a pre-sale model now. So we actually just did a pre-sale, closed it. So then once that all kind of comes to you, then we'll launch another one and try and manage it in that regard. But yeah, people always get us confused. We'll go to FDIC every year, and we have all these shirts and whatever, and people are like, "Oh, it's a cool T-shirt company," and we're like, "We're not a T-shirt company. We're just we just have cool shirts."
Well, Charlie, thank you for coming on. I want to applaud what you guys are doing. I think it's an amazing organization. I love the simplicity of it, but it's needed. I mean, you guys have blown up for a reason because the guys need help and the girls. So much props to you doing that. I know Jason and I both know what a heavy lift it is to spool up a nonprofit and do it the right way and the legal way and all the things that go along with that. It's not easy. It's a lot of work. And that's before you even get to the reason you wanted to start the foundation. So yeah, I think, like I said, mad respect for what you're doing and keep up the good work. And thanks for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me again. Any opportunity to be able to share the mission of what we do, and then to, like we're talking about, networking and so forth and tying in together. It's all about bringing up the community and helping those that are in need. Super grateful for the opportunity. So thanks for having me.
Yeah. Oh, the pleasure's ours for sure. And frankly, I live in Ventura County, and Jason lives not far from you, and it's a small world, especially in our little neck of the woods. But awesome. All right. Thank you.
Thanks for being on.
All right, that was interesting to me. I love the work they're doing. It's almost kind of like a no-brainer. Like, you ever hear people doing stuff and you go, "Well, how come no one else thought of that before?" Like, just take the peer support team that is like what progressive fire departments do and give it to everybody and make it a nonprofit. Like, I'm not trying to take away from what they're doing, but it's simple, but it's working, and they're using people, and I was impressed with that. Like, I thought that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Take some of those borders away, make it nationwide or bigger, and then take the government funding mechanism away, which is so cumbersome, and make it from donors and firefighters and being able to give back to the fire community. I liked the parallel that he drew, or maybe it was the opposite of that, where he said, us as firefighters are going on calls all the time going, I don't know if I would have called 911 for this issue. And then when we call for help, it's like, well, I don't know if this is worth going to peer support or going to the Next Rung for this issue. And I thought that was pretty interesting in my head, thinking, is this significant to get help for? And just as an aside, I just want to reach out to everybody and go, man, if there's an issue, catch it while it's small, because we see the issues when they get huge. So there's plenty of help when they're small right now, and that's the time to ask for the help, and that's what the training is about. Yeah.
The other thing I would say to our listeners and our people is put that phone number in your phone, because there's a lot of red tape still at the fire department that if you need help and you want to try to get help, it can be difficult, right? I think we're getting better over time, but that's a no-brainer. Yeah. Text that number, and that's, to me, is like, that's an easy win for somebody that's looking for help right away. Shout out to Chris Pirani, our peer support lead on Ventura Fire Department, and hopefully I can connect those two, because I know he's always looking for resources for our own firefighters and other fire department peer supports that are listening. Use those guys too.
Events coming up for the foundation. I think the biggest one we have is like, share, rate the podcast. So that's our push for this podcast. We still don't have many people who have actually taken the time to give us a review. And that actually really helps us in our ratings and our standings for this. So I'll just leave it at that.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason.
Yeah. Thank you.